welcome at this morning's Boardroom Bites at 9. I am Johandy Slabbert and I will be your host this morning. First things first, the functionality of this session is the Q&A box. Please, very important, pop your questions into the Q&A box. The chat box is simply to say hello like you've already done. And also if you've got any technical problems, we'll be looking to address them there. If you want to share a link that's relevant to this morning's session, you can do it there or simply just comment there. But remember to put those questions in the Q&A box. If you would like to ask a question to the speaker, you are more than welcome to raise your hand and we will address it by simply unmuting you and you can ask it live. This morning's session is about mental health in the workplace, and it will be presented by Kirsten Yatto from Four Seats Consulting. Kirsten's passion is developing people to flourish and enabling them to thrive. Her strength lies in assisting companies to create space for employee fulfillment, performance, and mental health. She brings 18 years of experience and she's worn many different hats, from working as an employee, an executive director, and an entrepreneur. Welcome, Kirsten. You can switch on your camera now.
Yes, give me a moment. There I am. Good morning, Boardroom Bites participants, fellow members. Being on a board myself, I know exactly what it feels like. So hearty welcome to mental health in the workplace today, a topic that I'm exceptionally passionate about. And I want to start off with perhaps casting back your mind to 2000, where as organizations we encountered what we called at that stage the Y2K. It was a time where organizations were in two camps. Either they sat back and waited what is going to happen at the turn of the century, how are all our systems going to adapt to it, or it was about being very proactive and really being active and changing it. And I think 23 years later, we are exactly at the same stage, just with a different topic, which is mental health. We either as an organization can be very proactive about it, or we can decide to sit back, wait, and see what happens. So I'm trying to encourage you to not sit back and wait and see, because this is what is something that is going to be very costly for you if it's not addressed soon enough. It's going to impact your bottom line, and maybe it has already. So today I want to just impart with you what not implementing mental health in the organization actually costs you and what the disadvantage is. But to start off with, I'm going to, let me just find all the buttons, ask you on a poll where the question is, how much does your organization focus on mental health? Just take a moment and actually ponder on that question, and you have 4 options. I'm going to show the results so that as you vote, it's either not at all, could be more, so there's some work, but could be more, somewhat, or a great deal. So just give it a minute and just cast your votes, and let's just see what those results are as they're coming in. Just gonna wait because I think it always is a bit of a delay. Okay, let me share results. Okay, just checking, are you seeing the poll? Okay, I guess nothing's coming through, so something's gone there. So I'm not going to ponder on that longer. But let's carry on with the next question, which is perhaps more towards you, which is, What does mental health mean to you? Because we very often do not have the same definition. Everybody has a different definition. We have a different perception of it. So the question is just for yourself, what does mental health mean to you personally? And that's always a question, because we sometimes just think it's physical, it's mental, it's social, but what is it really? And you're welcome to put your answers in the chat box, but it's just for you to really, if you'd have to define it for yourself, what is it? Because that becomes a key factor. How would we design it in our, how would we define it in our organizations? What is mental health for us collectively in an organization? And we go back to the World Health Organization's definition from 2018, which says it's a complete state of physical, mental, social well-being. So it's got 4 components, and it means that it's not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So at that very broad definition, there is no such category of I'm either mentally healthy or I have mental distress. There is no such thing, because the challenge for us is to be honest. Are we all managing all 4 of those criteria to a level of high well-being and flourishing? And the answer for most of us is no. So our mental health is tampered with or challenged with. Next question, looking at the mental health spectrum, which again is a spectrum of being unwell and in crisis, languishing, coping, healthy, or flourishing. We all strive to be in this thriving, flourishing pillar of the spectrum. But is it realistic for us to be there all the time? And the answer is no. We most probably, if we look at the spectrum, coping, languishing, or in a crisis, and it's taking a lot of energy to be in the healthy, thriving space. And that applies to you as executives, senior management, leadership, and the same for your teams. So how do you create a work environment where most of your organization has a culture of being healthy and thriving, and being mindful that you shift most probably in one day, and you can, I'm not saying you do, but you can in one day literally shift through these entire 5 spectrums. You might get up this morning, you're feeling healthy, you're feeling invigorated, it's all great, you've got the energy, you come to work, something happens, you straight away go into crisis management mode, you start picking up a bit of your energy again, you start languishing, you go home, you've coped. So we very often feel all 5 of them in one day, or at least in a week, which is exceptionally energetically draining. So if we're feeling that culture is very infectious within the organization, so we are creating this environment. Some mental health conceptions, misconceptions I want to perhaps address that are there and that are causing the stigma around mental health and this topic that we don't really want to talk about it, but we really need to address it and talk about it, because mental health in organizations needs to become, as I call it, a coffee table conversation. It needs to become just a normal standard conversation with no stigmas attached. And you'll see later why I want, or I'm so passionate to instill that in organizations. And it's really, if you look at that the mental health misconception is in 2 camps, where we either put people in the camp of you're either mentally healthy or you're not. And as I mentioned earlier, that doesn't exist. We all do straddle between all of them, to be very honest. We make the assumption that it only affects a few people, but that is incorrect, because after COVID, it's actually affected more people. And some of the stats I'll share with you, you'll see that. And the stats are from like 2000 and 2002. they're becoming worse and worse. They're more and more on the up. So there's more and more people affected by it. Hence, we need to embrace these conversations. We assume men are affected less and women more. That statistic is not true. It is just that sometimes men are more able to buffer it or mask it and not show it, because there's a history of not demonstrating or talking about mental health. And then the other one is that it's a sign of weakness or not coping. So we again buffer against it, trying to be tough and strong and managing and embracing all this busyness, being on the border of burnout and all of that, but we're just marching on and pretending we are coping where we are actually not. Our bodies, our mental health and psychological health are all giving us different warning signs, and we can only override it to a certain extent, and then it becomes dangerous. Let's look at some facts, and these are from 2020. So 3 years later, these numbers will have definitely increased substantially. But as you know, when it comes to scientific data, it always takes a bit more time to collect data and actually, do surveys or laboratory reports. So right now, we have depression in the workplace at 24%. I would most probably estimate it to already be on 35, 38%. We have a loneliness at 41%. That is primarily because of the COVID, the lockdown, and also the hybrid working. That statistic, I would say, has decreased a little bit because we are going back more to the hybrid working and more to the office space. Burnout, I have left the percentage out because it varies. So employee burnout is roundabout on 45%, whereas executive burnout is over 80%. So most executives within organizations are between stage 5 and 8 burnout, where stage 8 to 12 becomes total, where you are booked off for 3 to 4 months. So executives are on a very, very high level of burnout. Millennials and Generation Zs are not coping very well with our new hybrid working place, with this whole new working environment. The reason is twofold, that due to their young age, they have not built the level of resilience and perseverance. This is their first life crisis, if I can call them that, and they just do not have the experience. So they cannot draw back on any resources to say, okay, we've gone through this before, we know it will pass, and we've got the resources. So they are exceptionally challenged, and most probably they are your biggest percentage of your employee rate. Stress factors, 33%, which increases mental health, burnout, and also results into a lot of other physical diseases, and anxiety is 31%. Those percentages I'm all expecting when the results come out to be significantly higher. All right, let's look at the 5 levels of mental health. So the first one I want to look at is mental distress. And these numbers for me are super concerning. If you look at mental distress, we have 88% of our workforce experiencing symptoms of depression. Some of them are treated for it, some of them are not, but it is very high. So you can see that that is a very high number. 47% asking for help as a sign of weakness. So it's something they try and sort out with themselves. And that's always not necessarily a good thing, because we do sometimes, when it comes to certain instances, need professional support. And 46% of employees suffer from mental health symptoms. So if you're looking at your workforce, that is just nearly 50% of your workforce. Question is, how much awareness is there? How much support is there? How many conversations are there around it? Remember, for them, they don't ask for support. So it's our responsibility as leaders in an organization to really implement this conversation, to start it, to engage in it. I personally think it's an ethical responsibility that leaders in an organization have to create mental health in an organization, which I understand is a huge cultural change. Let's look at physical health. 52% of employees struggle sleeping. And as you know, insomnia or lack of sleep impacts productivity, performance, collaboration. People withdraw, they isolate, and we know cognitively lack of sleep is like having a severe hangover, or if you've had too much alcohol. So you're having employees who are not giving you 100% of their cognitive faculties, and you are looking more at presenteeism because they're physically there but mentally not there, so quality of work is not good. And 15% increase their prescription. So this is your prescribed prescription that they are getting from doctors, psychologists, and psychiatrists. So those are just important. I have not actually included physical health, like how many people exercise. And we assume it's a lot, but the numbers are staggering in that it's round about 20% of people only do physical exercises, be that weekly, daily, and that filters through to nutrition. So those are also two components that are important, but as an organization, we have less control over because we can't really make sure people exercise or eat healthy or sleep. So that is something where we can encourage it, we can invite our employees, but we can't really enforce it.
Kirsten, a quick question that came through. Hi, from Tashvira. What is the source of this information? What size organizations was included in the research?
I would have to actually look for you. I don't have it on hand now, but happy to share the link where I got it from. So sorry, I didn't reference that. But I can send that through to you. Good question. So I'll send that to you, Yolandi, and then you can pass that on. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, let's look at productivity and efficiency, because that's where your bottom line comes in when we're talking about mental health. So 52% have reduced interest in their tasks, which means this presenteeism is coming in. They just are feeling whatever, not interested in their task, not actually being engaged, doing what they have to do. Like they say, this new concept is coming in on a Monday where it's like, let's do the bare minimum on a Monday, and then let's get through the rest of the week. So this kind of energy is coming into the organization. For an organization who wants to grow, expand, really go to a different level, this is not something that is productive for them. 13% of managers have only been trained on mental health. So that means most managers are not confident, not comfortable about talking about mental health with their employees. They haven't had the training, the skills, they're not 100% sure what it is. Sometimes they feel it's not their place to have the conversation. It's really human resources place, but it's the manager who has the direct relationship with the employee. It's the manager who can pick up something is not right with my team member. Hence, it's the manager who has to start the conversation with the employee and say, what's happening. How can I support you? I can see you are not the same. You're not engaging, and really start facilitating the conversation. Human resources comes in at a different level and layer and as a different support structure. So one key component is to start training our managers, leaders, supervisors, direct reports, whoever you have. And you can see that with the next statistics, where 76% of employees feel unsupported by their companies. They feel that companies do not bring in the whole conversation about mental health. They do not feel that the environment is there to talk about it. Everything is task-orientated, goal-orientated, objective-orientated, which I understand needs to be there. But the human heart needs to come in again, the empathy and really caring for our employees as human beings first, and then looking at them as employees. Because if we don't do that one part, we are not going to get the productivity and the performance that we are wanting. And that opens the conversation for leaders to say to their teams, what support do you need? And having these EPA programs are fantastic, and having a pool of coaches or mentors or psychologists and psychiatrists for employees to go to are fantastic. But are we still having internal conversations? Are we supporting employees to go there? Are we facilitating conversations? How are we managing conversations with somebody who's struggling with burnout? So this is a big part of the conversation. Okay, let's look at emotional health. So here we have 51% of people feeling hopeless. And if people feel hopeless, they disengage, they do not problem solve, they do not become creative, they do not try. And again, we need optimism, we need hope in the organizations. We need to know that there's a better future for us, even within the challenges we face in South Africa. There needs to be hope that what we are doing as a company, or that my work has an impact or influences somebody, and it's not just a task and I actually don't know who it does what to. So it's really about finding meaning in my work. 41% of employees feel lonely from working from home, and that comes back to that previous statistic. As much as we like this new hybrid model, for some employees it works, for others not, and they are missing their colleagues. They are missing the sense of belonging. They are missing being connected to the organization, to the heartbeat of the organization, the values, the strategies, going and walking down the passage, having coffee with somebody, just idly talking about the weekend. They are missing that. So they are feeling lonely and isolated, which impacts their work, their engagements. So that is a statistic that is concerning. And then we've got 31% of employees experiencing task anxiety, because there are just, the volume of work has just increased and the speed of work has increased. So there's a lot more anxiety to get this all done and finish it on time, which is resulting in working over hours, working on the weekends, and the work-life balance whole process is being tampered with. Last one of these 5 levels is burnout, and that is our biggest challenge right now when it comes to mental health. And the challenge is that burnout is a creeping mental health disease that comes in. It's not something that you see from day 1 to day 3 kind of thing. It's something that creeps in slowly, you just cope, you manage, and then one day your body, your mental and emotional system just goes, no can do. And 42% of women suffer more from burnout. The reason is more because of their different responsibilities that they have. They have a wider, often, responsibility because of the family and the social community. Often also women put more pressure on themselves in the workplace. Millennials we've spoken about, and 75% of employees are experiencing burnout. So burnout, you can start noticing this telltale signs a bit earlier, because you'll notice somebody who's working exceptionally late, long hours, isn't sleeping, starts to not perform, starts to deliver mediocre performance, misses deadlines. So those are all little small telltale signs where you are noticing somebody's moving from is in a coping environment. Again, conversation needs to be had. Okay, let's just watch time. Let's look at some other workplace health facts. These are from Discovery, as you can see, from a survey done in 2019. So again, pre-COVID or just in COVID, and it's they will have changed by now, again, a lot. And here is the health status of your actual employees if you look at them. If you think of it, that 50% of your workforce have 5 or more high risk factors, and high risk factors are, for example, heart attack, diabetes. So those are there. So if you're looking at scanning your workforce, it's 50% of them have high risk health factors that are very challenging. 63% are physically not active. 43% of employees are overweight, and 34% are eating unhealthy. So these are the physical components that are adding. Okay, so we carry on where we said 76% of employees feel unsupported by their organization. And for me, that statistic is not acceptable. We really need to work on that. We need to make sure our employees feel supported. And as you're sitting here, you might be an executive director, you might be a leader, you might be the CEO or CFO, but think about it, you are also an employee. So you are part of this statistic. 6 out of 1 adults experience anxiety, depression, overwhelm, or burnout. So it's 1 in 6 people, which is quite high. I'm sure it's higher. And the next one, again, is a shocker, because it says 9% of people who disclose to their managers that they have a mental illness were disciplined, dismissed, or demoted. And that is where the stigmatism comes in, because that is not encouraging employees to actually share. And we want them to share so that we can offer that level of support. So that is something of great concern. And if we're bringing in diversity, inclusion, and respect, this speaks totally against that. And it's not about discriminating employees who suffer from mental illness. I mean, it's not their fault. It's not that they've gone out there to achieve this. It's very often the environment we have created, both externally as well as maybe internally in the organization, that is adding to this. And we've spoken about the managers who've received mental health. Coming back to South Africa, what does this all cost you if you think about it? Organizations want to keep tight budgets. They want to increase their margins. They want to be profitable. They want to grow. They want to expand globally, do a lot of lovely things. And they often do not measure what mental health is costing them in the organization. And very often it's a silent or non-measured line item within the income statement, if you want to say it like that, because 50% of absenteeism is caused by mental health. People just phoning in saying, I'm not coming to work today, not feeling great. Reasons can be I've got back pain, I've got a migraine, I've got a tummy bug, whatever. But sometimes it's actually, I'm just not feeling great. And generally, mental health is costing the South African economy 16 billion rand because of employees not coming to work. And that is a very high figure that naturally impacts our GDP and our growth within organizations, resulting in organizations not sometimes having another option, but to downscale, rearrange employment or how teams are working, doing mergers and acquisitions, all these things. And often your mental health is a component that is not measured. And one employee costs you 10,000 Rand per annum if they take 8 days of sick leave. So for all the human resource managers, I'm quite sure you go and work this statistic out, and it's something you report to the board of directors on, but it really needs to be line items in the board pack where it is, what is the mental health level of our organization? Because employees are your biggest asset, and we need to nurture them for us to actually achieve our strategic goals. And employees not having mental distress, doing sick leave, absenteeism, presenteeism, disengagement, team dynamics changing, losing high-performing team members, those are all elements. I know they're not that easy to measure, but they're very costly for us, and we need to try and find out what it is. So the fourth bottom line approach that I'm talking about is trying to implement a well-being mindset and culture. I mean, that's my biggest call to action to you as you're sitting here, as I'm asking you to go and really think about the culture you have. Is it a well-being orientated culture and mindset? I know it takes months, even years, to change a culture in an organization, 9 months to 3 years. It's a lot of work. It needs a lot of advocates to do it. It's requesting behavioral change from the CEO right to the bottom of the organization. There needs to be buy-in on all levels. But if you're not going to do this, you will struggle with retaining employees, and employees are, or skills are scarce, as we know. So this is something I want to really leave with you to think about and question yourself of, do we have a well-being mindset in our organization? Many organizations I engage with say, yes, we do. We really worry about our employees. Then when I start interviewing the employees, it's, no, we have meetings during lunchtime. That is a contradictory behavior of, we want to do well-being and a culture, and then we book meetings over lunch. We are sending different signals. So the positive link between well-being and performance is that healthier employees deliver a better service to your clients. And what is the most valuable, second valuable asset to an organization are our clients. We want to retain them, we want to service them, we want to have loyalty, because we all know, especially a salesperson, how much effort it takes to get a new client. And they are more productive. So healthier companies outperform the market by 50%. Again, if you're looking at that, it feeds back to stakeholder return. Your board of directors will be happy if they get a higher dividend and a bigger return on investment. So where do we start? It's definitely with well-being and mental health. And if you don't believe me, I can look again where the stats come from. but this did come from the Discovery Survey 2019, is that they stated that if you look at the Standard and Poor Index, or the companies, the top 500 companies, the ones that included a well-being and mental health culture in their organization increased their client service and outperformed the other top 500 companies. So it's there, it's happening. There are statistics around it, so that this isn't just some fluffy, like to have woohoo thing. It's really something where you can measure that this is a deciding factor that adds to your bottom line. And if you want to outgrow your competition, this is something to really, really take serious. So workplace health is an asset. It's not a liability. It's not something to do when we have time. It is really something that needs to come into the board pack to be there as a line item. It is something to discuss like you would do marketing, finance, sales. It is a statistic to look at. It is really to find out what is the pulse within our organization, what are employees feeling, how are we engaging with them. So really it's about creating this live conversation with them. Going into 2023, as well as the future, mental health will be the center front of all organizations. Right now, it might still be somewhere on your list. It might be number 10, but it really is going to be center. Lunguela is raising her hand. Would we like to take that question? Or, oh, two participants raised hands, so I'll, let me just.
I will unmute Lungelwa.
Help, please.
Lungelwa, you must just unmute on your side. It will ask you to unmute. Let's go to Ignatius. Allowed to talk. If you can just unmute yourself there. There we go. Ignatius, you are you can talk.
Otherwise, put it in the chat box and we'll get, or the Q&A, and we'll get back to it. Because we've just got like 3 slides left and then we've got Q&A anyway. Would that work?
Yes, let's proceed, Kirsten.
Okay, awesome. So mental health in the workplace is honestly not just the role and responsibility of the senior executives. It's a combined company effort. It's a collective effort. And I think that also needs to be emphasized within the company if you roll out a mental health culture. Senior executives are critical from the buy-in point of view, from role modeling it in, and also believing in the concept and really wanting it in the organization, because that filters through to the rest of the organizations. It impacts the strategy, the stakeholders conversation, all of those. So senior executives play a significant role. Leaders play a significant role because they foster these conversations. They demonstrate it, also they're role models. And also there's a change of policies, procedures, everything needs to be revised. And employees play an equal responsibility to participate and engage and actually have those open, vulnerable conversations. So it is a 3-way process that happens in an organization. So I don't want to in any way bring across that it is only the responsibility of senior executives and leaders. Employees have to be educated to engage in this and also be proactive. So it's a joint thing. If we look at, again, these 3 pillars, for executives, it's their style of leading, of really showing a mental health style. Their main focus is talent retention. That's what they're wanting to do. Train and develop people and create a culture, a healthy, positive, well-being culture. Those will be key drivers for them. Leaders are interested in team collaboration, healthy communication, positive communication where there's psychological safety, where people feel they can trust each other and voice their ideas without being bullied, mobbed, humiliated. So that's something there. They want to foster support and productivity. So that's what a leader is interested in. And employees, if you look at what they are looking for in organizations when it comes to mental health, you'll see it's about being in a safe space so that they can be vulnerable, to have regular check-ins, and regular check-ins that the modern employee is looking for is definitely weekly, not 2 weekly, not 1 monthly. They really want these weekly check-ins. Very often, the check-ins are on 2 levels. The one is on a productivity level, like how are you doing with your tasks and are you falling behind? Do you need any support? You know, those kind of normal check-ins that most organizations have on a Monday or on a Tuesday. So these team check-ins, but they want individual check-ins, as they would often call them, coffee chat check-ins, where they go 20 minutes or half an hour or 15 minutes. It's the leader and me. I want to know how you are doing as the employee from an emotional point of view, from a physical point of view, from a mental point of view. I'm not engaging with you from a leader employee level. I'm actually checking in with you from a human element. So employees are demanding that, they're expecting that. And if they don't get that, they start disengaging. And that for a leader, it's challenging because it involves a lot of time. But as leaders, we are responsible to lead, manage employees. Well-being care, they are demanding and need well-being care, and they want satisfaction and engagement. That is what your modern employee is looking for. And as they increase in the numbers in the workforce, they are going to ask for this more and more. And that is a shift to what organizations are sometimes offering. Hence, there's a... Okay, let's look at a mental health culture mindset, because you might be sitting here thinking, okay, like, where do we start? I mean, this is just such a big ideal world. It's nice to say all these things, but really, like, where do we practically start? And I've just put a few things together where you can really start with this. It's a bigger program, it's a bigger process, but just get in the mindset of saying, yes, we are going to talk about mental health in our organization, and we're going to instill the mindset. So the first thing is start talking about mental health. Have training sessions, have seminars, have podcasts, have professionals come in about it. Destigmatize the topic. It is nothing to put in a box and hide and be ashamed of. We need to make it a normal conversation. Promote people to go on annual leave. People need breaks, but if they go on annual leave, it is to totally recharge and disconnect from work. So it's not going on leave with my laptop and checking in on emails or anything. That is not leave. You need the people to really have downtime so that they come back recharged, re-energized, feeling passion for their jobs again, missing their colleagues. So really doing that. And that same call applies to senior executives. bringing in a culture of care and empathy. So as much as we often want to drive performance, tasks, objectives, and all of those things which are critical for us, it's also sometimes sitting back and thinking, right, what can I do for this employee right now? What do they need from me? And really coming in with a heart and not just with the head and the doing part, but really caring about them as a human being. Bringing in psychological safety, as I say, which is about really stimulating conversations. And sadly, we have a big desire to have that in organizations, but I see it in very few organizations where trust is built to actually speak up, not, to share my ideas regardless how crazy they are perhaps or off the bat, but to really just give you my ideas and to be listened to and be respected for them, and trying to understand why I got there or how I got there or what's my thinking behind it. Minimizing negative language and behavior. Now, that is a cultural change. And again, if you just for today, go and listen to the language used in your organization, you are most likely going to notice that you use a lot of negative terminologies or language. It will start in your email conversations, your WhatsApp conversations, and just sense check. What is that level of communication? Because if you start changing the language from more positive language, it already starts changing the mindset towards opportunities and positiveness, and it instills positive emotions. So all of these things we want. Include employees in decision making. So that is not always easy, but try and involve the team sometimes in the decision making, because they need to execute this. So the more you ask them, the more you get buy-in from them, the more there is discussion, the more they feel valued and respected, which buffers and bolsters their mental health, because they feel acknowledged, they feel validated, they feel meaning. So that actually has a huge component for them. And build trust on the topic. So if you're going to discuss mental health in the workplace, confidence is absolutely critical. And we need to treat all of the information we receive with absolute respect, sensitivity, and confidence. If at any stage an employee finds out that this was discussed somewhere, you have closed down the conversation immediately, and it will be, the grapevine goes very fast, travels super fast in an organization. Invest in employee development, again, on mental health, how they can, what they can do to bolster their mental health. What is mental health? What are tips that they can do to manage stress? What is burnout? Do that and actively go and promote work-life blend, because it is a blend nowadays. It's not anymore work and then life. It is one. And it's really fostering that and seeing how we can implement it. So those are just some of my practical steps to start off with for you on how you're going to do it. As I say, it's a bigger process. Some of you might have large human and resource development departments or learning departments, so you'll already be doing that. But there are organizations here attending who do not perhaps have that level of, or that layer in the organization, and this might fall on the CFO's shoulders or another manager's shoulders, and it's another thing that they have to do to add on, and they don't know how to do it and lack the knowledge or the time, which I totally understand. So maybe some of these will help you. Okay, so just checking time. Right, I am here now we are here for Q&A.
Q&A. Okay, let's jump in. The first question, Kirsten, is from patients. Most of the stress comes from financial instability amongst employees. Can the organization engage in cash flow management trainings?
Yes, you are right. A lot of employees are having financial stress factors right now, and that is adding tremendously to their mental health. So organizations, when it comes to training and development, a lot of them that I've worked with have gone and educated employees about finances, budgets, cash flows, how to do retirement. So they've had all these actual conversations with them, trying to support them to alleviate the distress, because a lot of employees do not know how to manage their finances. So yes, that is something that is part of the mental health. Yes.
Ibrahim asked, please advise appropriate interventions and solutions, both nationally and at organization level, to address these scary statistics.
I don't think there's one intervention that you could go either globally or internationally and say, this is it. And I knew that question would come, because the answer to it is every organization has their own personality, their own culture, like every household has. And it's really starting to work with what would work with your culture, what would work for your employees. So it's reading wide, looking what other companies have done, and then I would say cherry picking what you think could work for you. So there is no one package that would do it. And that's what makes it complicated. So I'm sorry, there is no other way to explain it.
Kirsten, a question from Pia Kutsia. What is the best way to measure mental health in the workplace? Is it by with an employee survey?
Good question again. A lot of organizations do use well-being surveys that they ask their employees to fill out on a quarterly basis, kind of thing. The challenge with surveys is that you will get not all of your employees to complete them, and it's often the measurement on the day. So you can have an employee who's having a really off day, and here the survey arrives, and now you're going to get it, where they normally don't actually feel that. So the importance is that if you do surveys, you do them very frequently, so that you can exclude all the outlier results, if I can call it that, that you get a good statistic. So surveys are popular. Sometimes it's interviews. So you would have people come and interview employees and ask them questions. And that is often done by external consultants, because employees feel comfortable and trustworthy to share information with us. Where if they would ask your leader or somebody else, they go, no, I'm not going to share this with you. So it's surveys. And then there are mental health apps where some organizations run these apps that get sent out to their employees on either weekly basis, and it asks them 3 to 5 questions, like how stressed are you today, or how productive were you today, or whatever. So it's very short, 5 questions, and it accumulates the data and it gives a report to the manager. And again, that trend will help you to understand quite quickly what's happening. So those are the 3 common ones I'm familiar with.
Thanks, Kirsten. Then from Shakun, how can one maintain the psychological safety?
Oh, I like the word maintain. You can only maintain it through building and fostering continuous, strong, positive interpersonal relationships. As a leader, holding the space, having the conversations, really engaging in conversation, but equally holding people accountable. So it's not the kind of conversation where you always just talk about the nice, fuzzy, positive stuff. It's also about holding people accountable, being open, honest, trustful, but with empathy and respect. So it's, I think, as a manager or as a leader, the first question as you wake up every morning is, who do I have to have a conversation with? Where do we need to talk? Because it's the conversations that build the trust and the safety. And communication is the biggest stumbling block in, I would say, 99% of organizations. We do not communicate enough. And listening to employees, I've never heard an employee in my 13 years say to me, I've been over communicated to. So there is no such thing. So it's really dialing up your communication, and especially now post-COVID, the communication ratio is that you need to share the same message to your employees by 12 times for them to actually get it, because they are not all working at the same time. They're all working on different platforms. They're not perhaps in a mental state to take in this information. So it's the same thing over and over. So that builds psychological safety.
Thank you, Kirsten. Vasily is also commenting on this specific thing, saying, how is psychological safety defined?
Psychological safety is a terminology that was defined by Amy Edmondson, who's a researcher in America. And it's defined, I must give, if you want the exact definition, I'll quickly give it to you. Just don't want to, I'll give you mine, but I'll just look at what, just give me a moment. If you want her true definition. Okay, so psychological safety is in an environment that encourages, recognizes, and rewards individuals for their contribution and ideas by making individuals feel safe when taking interpersonal risks. So it's a lot about them being vulnerable, speaking up, using their voice, but at no stage being ridiculed for it, silenced, mobbed, laughed at, or anything like that. It's really taking what they're saying at serious.
Thank you, Kirsten. I've got 2 more questions. I think we'll leave it at that and close the session right after. So a comment from Lingewa was, do you perhaps have stats on how many large organizations assist employees with building resilience workshops? She says she feels that this is needed in our community.
What are the stats for large organization on building resilience workshops? Or have resilience workshops? I don't actually have stats. From personal experience, I can just say that my resilience workshop was the most booked workshop in 2022. Organizations were continuously asking, can you please help my team to be resilient? So if I would just multiply that across all the consulting businesses in South Africa, I would say it's a very high and popular course, but I don't have a statistic. Sorry.
Thanks, Kirsten. And then last question to Bogo. How do you help an employee whose mental health is affected by their work environment? Maybe they are not a perfect fit for that environment, or they are different and misunderstood, making it difficult for colleagues and seniors not to relate with them well.
So sorry, the employee is not a culture fit within the organization.
Yeah, and that gives mental health. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So that is a good question. that the environment that the employee is working in is causing them mental distress. And if we're noticing that, it sounds, I think the most ethical thing to do is to have a conversation with the employee and either see if you can change their work tasks, move them into a different division, or if it really doesn't, if it's not a cultural fit, to help them find other employment. As much as it's not what you want to do, if you want to put the person first, then that is what you would do. And it's also the best thing for you as an organization, because if you leave it, what are you going to walk towards is a poor performance evaluation, which is going to work into a disciplinary or a written warning or whatever. So it's not a win-win situation. So there needs to be conversation around this at some stage. And that's where I'm saying that's a adult hard conversation, but you are actually serving your employee and as well as the organization.
Thanks, Kirsten. Let's close the session.
Leadership isn't for sissies. Seriously, is it not?
No, that's it. Okay, Kirsten, thank you so much. Thanks for making us all think deeper about the culture of being healthy on the inside. And how that affects our employees. If anybody of you would like to get in contact with Kirsten, please do so. We've got her contact details. I see her website is on here, but if you need her direct contact details, we are very willing to hand it over to you on an email. And you can contact her for workshops or for any other needs that you might have. Other than that, the slides will be shared with you. The video will also be made available on YouTube after the session, and you are more than welcome to share the link with any of your friends or colleagues who might also benefit from this insightful session from Kirsten Yatto. Thank you so much, Kirsten.
You're very welcome, and I hope it's planted a seed somewhere for somebody to think about it. So thank you for listening to me. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for staying for an hour. And may you all have an amazing, wonderful day and stay just good and healthy. Thank you.